Okay, hello. I'm going to explain what the polar vortex was during this very cold, bitter, icy winter of 2013-2014 in the United States. And contrary to what you've been told, it was not a natural event. Let me just switch to this view real quickly. What happened was there was, in the jet stream, this is the jet stream, these colored areas are fast-moving areas of rivers of air high up in the atmosphere. This is at 250 millibars. So this is the level that jet airplanes fly at, basically. And what happened was there was a clockwise river of air in the jet stream that was held there all winter long. And that's a high pressure because it's a clockwise flow. And it would drag the cold air from Alaska and Canada and even the Arctic right down into the central United States. So let me go back to the other picture and show you. These are just representation of what happens on the Earth. At the equator you have rising air that then goes far up into the jet stream and then cools and comes back down. And these are natural circulation cells, and they set up the weather bands of the Earth. Now what happens with the HAARP transmitter, it's a multi-billion watt transmitter at Gakona, Alaska, and it will transmit huge amount of power into the ionosphere, which is 50 to 100 miles up above the surface. And this causes a bulge out into space. That low pressure gas gets so hot it actually bulges out into space. And what that does is it creates a tall column of air. And underneath, the air starts falling. This column starts falling, and that produces a downdraft of cold, dry air. And that is used for several things. Number one, it's used to squash storm systems. So they can stop rain clouds anywhere within the HAARP transmitter's range. But it can also be used to control fronts, how they move, and where they are stationary. And that is what was done with the HAARP transmitter in Gakona for the majority of the winter. The Gakona transmitter, which is here, transmitted this huge amount of power to this area in the ionosphere, creating this high pressure. So by retransmitting this power every day, they were able to hold the jet stream in this pattern, creating this wind pattern that dragged cold Canadian air down into the central U.S. And I have actually saved the jet stream flows since December 29th or so. So let me step through that. Okay, December 29th. We can see there's this nice circular flow. And there it is again. December 25th, December 26th, December 31st. You notice it's maintained there. January 2nd, January 3rd. Oh, this is 2014. We've just moved from 2013 into 2014. And now I need to point out, okay, now this is being done as an act of psychological warfare on the American people. Because who can actually say, oh, global warming is real when it's minus 20 degrees and there's 2 feet of snow outside? So what happened was, in the eastern seaboard, where the political decisions are made, as long as they had it icy, really cold, then they could slack off on this high pressure here. But once you get a southerly flow with some moderate temperatures, like in this case here, they press the accelerator again, to rebuild the high pressure and force that northwestern, Canadian air and Alaska air to come back down into the central U.S. So as you see this jet stream flow go from the south to the north on the eastern seaboard, you will see them press the accelerator again here. And this is just the HAARP transmitter, very easy for them to do. Technically it's nothing. Okay, let's step through. Okay, very cold air coming down. And January 6, 2014. Okay, now we're seeing a southerly flow through Washington, D.C. again. So how can these politicians... Okay, anyway, now they need to press the gas pedal again because it's warming up. Okay, now we see they've pressed the gas pedal, they're rebuilding the high pressure. And that cold air is really coming down now. Whoa. You know, once it gets too cold, they let up on it because they don't want to show all their cards, right? Tip their hand. And here's a great example. Here's really strong southerly flow through Washington, D.C., where the decisions are made, where the political climate is set. And here they're rebuilding the Alaska icebox flow. So keep stepping through. January 13, 2014. January 14. January 15. January 16. January 17. January 18. I think we can all remember this was an incredibly bitter, icy, terrible time. January 19, 2014, January 20, January 21, January 23, January 24, and February 1st. So a few of these are out of order. January 26, and this is just really some tremendous. Okay, all this warm, humid air from Asia is routed clear up to the north coast of Alaska, melting the ice, breaking up the ice, and then it picks up, as it cools, it's funneled straight back down to the eastern seaboard. So they're going to let off on this. And they do. January 29th, January 30th. Okay, here we have southerly flow again. They're going to have to build it back up. 31st, February 1st, February 2nd, February 3rd, February 4th, February 5th, February 6th, 2014, February 7, 2014. Now at this point there became a lot of rainstorms that were moving through the crop areas of the U.S. And the HAARP is also tasked with preventing rain and stopping agriculture. So they diverted the Gacona and one other Pacific HAARP, which I will not talk about, to that purpose. And so here we have basically a normal weather pattern. And you know, with this, I mean, if they could just leave it like that, the U.S. will have normal temperatures, normal rain, and normal crop production. But they will not leave it like that. Furthermore, they try to build a low pressure up here and then use the high pressure to push it into the Arctic, which has the effect of breaking up the Arctic ice and melting the Arctic even faster. This is weather warfare on a planetary scale. Okay, now they're building it back up again. February 13th, February 14th, February 15th, February 16th, normal zonal flow. I wish they could leave it like that. But this is warfare, and you people in the United States do not realize you are victims of psychological warfare for the last 4 months. 19th February, 20th February, 21 February 2014, 22nd February, 23 February, 24 February, 25 February. And, let me back up. I mean, look at this extraordinary amount of airflow through this really sensitive Arctic area, dragging warm air and high winds. You don't see that in Antarctica, only next to this Gakona transmitter, which is right there. Okay, 25th February, 26th February, 27th February, 28th February, 1st of March, 2nd of March, 3rd of March, 4th of March, 5th of March, 6th of March. This is the time when nice rain showers were starting to come through the U.S. in normal spring patterns, and the HAARP was reallocated to shutting down those storm patterns. Because remember, that column of falling dry air will actually squash a storm system. Because precipitation cannot happen when there is descending dry air on top of a storm cloud. 6 February, March, 6 March, 7 March, 8 March, March 9th, March 10th, March 11th, March 12th, March 13th, March 14th, March 15th, March 16th, March 17th, March 18th. Again, you've got a nice southerly flow. The eastern seaboard is thawed out, so they've got to reestablish it. March 19th, March 20th, March 21st, March 22nd, March 23rd, March 24th, March 25th, and the predominant effort in late March has been, the last half of March has been just stopping the rain in the western half of the U.S. The Gakona HAARP can reach all the way to the Mississippi to stop rain, and of course the other Pacific transmitter. 27 March, March 28th, March 29th, March 30th, and this was the day of the big Yellowstone earthquake, so frankly I don't know if there's any connection. March 31st, March 32nd, oh sorry, 32nd, April 1st, April 2nd, April 4th, April 5th, April 6th, April 7th, April 8th, and April 9th. Today there's a massive low pressure. It looks like a hurricane right here. So they're going to use this high pressure and inch it over to push this low pressure up into the Arctic. I expect that in the next 48 hours, because the HAARP is being used to accelerate the Arctic methane emergency. I believe we would have had 50 to 100 years before the Arctic was melting the way it is now if HAARP had not been used. Okay, so the other interesting feature about this is these other swirls, they were not pinned in place. If we just go through quick, you can see these other swirls, they're not pinned in place. They move, but this guy here is pinned in place. And that is why we had the quote, polar vortex. It was an act of weather warfare and psychological warfare as well, to keep the political climate from addressing the Arctic methane emergency. Okay, I'm out of time. Thank you very much.